Good evening and welcome to the Gospel Truth. I'm Brother Alan Jackson, bringing to you spiritual songs and hymns and the power of the spoken word of God. First of all, giving thanks to God Almighty for blessing me with this another outpouring of his tender love and mercy. And that has allowed me once again to be on this the time side of life and to have this another blessed privilege to come to you by way of this television medium in his name and to bring to you another message from his holy and divine word. I'd like to continue to express my appreciation and my gratitude to the production staff for their diligent service. And it's my prayer that God will continue to bless each one of them and to bless them with those things that he knows that they are standing in need of. And I'm praying on your behalf as participant observers. It's my prayer that God will continue to bless you and your family members with those things that he knows that you're standing in need of as well. And of course, I'm encouraging you to pray on my behalf because I'm also standing in need of prayer. And it's only God who can provide me with those things that I'm standing in need of. This evening, we're going to deviate from our programming norm, but I am going to bring to you a program of public interest. And you will see as a result of the participants that they are futuristically oriented. In other words, you're going to hear from some seniors who have some good advice for our young people, because we know what's happening in the Alameda County Probate Department. And so this evening, we will be listening to and hearing from the Alameda County Probate Court Reform Movement. So, I'd like to introduce to you spokesperson and perhaps the chairperson, Mrs. Maxine Ushery. So, without any further remark, Ms. Ushery.
Hello, my name is Maxine Ushery, and I want to thank Brother Jackson for inviting us to, in fact, share some of our concerns about what's happening to us as senior citizens and what is happening to us as persons who've inherited property and are having it stolen away from us by the probate court system. We have been, all of us, we have a group of about 65 persons who in fact are now involved in our organization. We in fact have been meeting for the last 2.5, almost 3 years now. And our purpose is to in fact share with persons who in fact have to go through or have already been through what is happening in the probate court system in Alameda County. We have in fact been ostracized and almost in fact criminally treated because we have inherited property from seniors in our families, and we are in the process of trying to figure out how to get the probate court investigated because of the things that have happened to all of us. We have similar stories, but we also have different situations, and we would like very much to be able to share that with the persons who are here. My particular case is a case of my father having a trust and a will, and again, we thought that would cover almost anything that could happen to us. What has happened is that the trust has been violated by the court system. We have been taken over by trustees of the court, and we are now fighting to try and keep the property, although each piece of property is up for sale. They're not giving us an opportunity to in fact buy the property back. And so we in fact started to meet, and we find out that there are a lot of people this is happening to. And no one questions the court orders that in fact have been issued. And so therefore we are in fact being taken advantage of. We in fact are being told that we cannot buy the property. We in fact are being told that we need to have someone take over and administer the property for us. And so we are working at trying to organize well enough to be able to fight what is happening to the group of us. If it were happening to me as an individual, and it was, I thought I was the only person this was happening to. Now I'm really assured that it's not just me, it's the court system that needs to be in fact looked into. So that's a part of what our group is about. We have other individuals who are here who will talk a little bit about themselves and what happens to them. But again, I have been fighting about my father's property, who left us all paid and fully paid for, and with no debts, but also with a will and a trust that spelled out his wishes. And those wishes have been being fought by the court system and the attorneys that they appoint to in fact administer our property. And so we are now facing having all of it sold, and we have also been told we will not be able to in fact purchase it ourselves. So, okay. I need to in fact share the time with some other people who will be talking about their particular situations, but you can reach me at area code 831-238-0096 for further information, and we will in fact hear from some of the other people who are part of our group. So thank you.
So my name is Ao. My great uncle was a Tuskegee Airman and purchased his home in 1965 in Berkeley with a GI Bill. And in April of 2016, we had that home taken from us. He had no kids, and the only family he had, or considered family, was my mother, who was his niece, and my mother's 3 kids. I'm one of the 3. In April of 2016, the home that's been in our family since the 1960s and was paid off in 1994 was taken from us by the state, by the courts, which is state sanctioned. And we offered to buy the rest of the heirs out. There's about 26 heirs, and we were pre-approved for a loan to buy the house for $500,000. The fiduciary who took over the estate told us that we would have to compete with the open market. And the home actually ended up selling for $600,000, so that in fact was something that we could do, but it wasn't offered to us because the very next day after we qualified to purchase the home, we were illegally evicted from the estate. The fiduciary claimed that there was a verbal lease that stated that we would take care of my uncle 24/7 and also pay him $3,000 a month rent. This fiduciary actually didn't even know where my uncle's remains resided. So those remains, along with his wife's remains, were also evicted from the home when we were evicted. I do housing law locally here in Oakland and Berkeley, and I was aware that Berkeley had the strongest tenant protections in the country, so I decided to protest and not leave the home. I had some lawyers present. I had 15 community members present. I also had the Berkeley City Council's assistants also on site. And after protesting for 2 hours, a sergeant came up to the site, and I was arrested and taken to Santa Rita, where I had to bail myself out, and Alameda County DA decided to proceed with criminal charges of resisting arrest and what was the other charge? Evading a court order. Those charges continued through up to trial. When we finally did go to trial, they had to drop the charges due to the fact that they went over to the civil courthouse and found out that the eviction was in fact illegal. I did 60 hours of community service for disrespecting the police by telling them to get out my home. The house has been sold for $600,000, and the majority of the funds will go to the fiduciary and the brokers and the courts. It's important to point out that the first person to arrive on the scene the day of the eviction was actually the broker who was going to sell the home.
My name is Charlotte Franklin. I'm representing, everybody knows her as Joe. My mom worked at Treasure Island from 1955 to 1986. She moved from San Francisco to Oakland in 1968, purchased a home in North Oakland, and paid it off in '89. My mom fell ill, had a stroke, double amputee, and her youngest child became conservator of the person. Well, we agreed to take care of my mom, and social services, Julia Fletcher, helped us with supplies which were supplied to us for free. Well, my mom had Social Security and her pension, but Judge Richard Hodge decided to appoint a public guardian. Well, the public guardian stated a couple of years later that the Social Security and the retirement monies were not sufficient for bills and so forth. They took a reverse mortgage out of my mom's house. Now, this is Social Services of Alameda County, the agent services. We were able to take care of our mom without social services, but once they find out that you have property, then that's when they come in. Social services spent up all the reverse mortgage money, $360-something thousand. Then they wanted me to move into my mom's house and pay $1,200 a month. And I told them that I don't pay that much rent. Well, they came up with another plan to send someone that would be a conservator, a tenant, and pay the $1,200. I said no. They came up with another idea to where, as well, can you pay $300 a month for living expenses? And I said, well, you send my mom $300 a month, keep it. I'll pay that out of my pocket. No, we have to balance our books. So they continue to send $300 a month, living expenses. So I'm paying them to send my mom the $300. If at any time a parent passes away and there's no will, the children should try and come together, because when there are disputes and the probate court system gets involved, there's no money left for the heirs. The lawyers, the judges, and anybody else will end up receiving all the money. My mom's house sold for $615,000. One court stated that the heirs would receive $0. Another, that was Judge Tom Reardon. He stepped down for a minute. Another judge comes in, Kramer, And he says, this is ridiculous. Where did all these fees go? Special administrators, special traders, special that. He decreased the amounts that the lawyers and all these people were to receive. In the end, the heir, a little bit of money, not enough to even mention, but social services is one way that your properties will get lost, will get taken away. The probate court system, all they want is to take your property to whereas the heirs have nothing. So if families can stay together and, you know, stop trying to be greedy, because money is not everything. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Uwanda Sexton, and I'm here to talk about the estate at 1322 Russell Street, Berkeley, California, a home in which I was born and raised in. And I'm here, my mother is here with me, and we're here to talk about her house being in foreclosure, a house that she has lived in since she was 20 years old. She's now 85, and they sold it to foreclosure. She tried to go to the Board of Supervisors for Oakland, and various judges just would not work with her at all on this particular incident. So we're very torn, very torn. This is a house that my father labored with, and for them to come and steal it was very disheartening for the family. And so at this point, we're just trying to expose the system, the judges, the Alameda County judges, the city officials, the Board of Supervisors, the Elder Abuse Council. All of them were involved with this, and were very instrumental in helping them take my mother's property. Thank you.
I'm Pinky Sexton, and I've been in Berkeley for a long time, and own a piece of property at 1322 Russell Street, Berkeley. And I got into a situation with Aquan. And so I went to different classes that was saying that they was going to help seniors. And so, but I went there, but I never got any help. So finally, one day, came home, there was a person up on top of the back of the house, and he was trying to get a key made. And so, so it went on, and so finally, it got to the place where that Aquan was the one that was carrying the mortgage. And I did deal with Aquan, and they said that they were going to work it out, but it did not. So finally one day, it was on a Thursday, and a guy came by, and he said he came to look at the property, and that it was up for sale. So I said no, and my next door neighbor came over. But anyway, I finally left there and went down to the auction place, and I just had a stroke. So, but I went down there. So here it was. The man that was talking about giving the auction, and he said there was another guy there. He said, "Don't you have a forgot now what it was." Anyway, he asked if I had reported, and I said, yes, I do. I have reported that. And so he said, okay. And he said, well, they shouldn't do that. You need to go. This fellow said to me, he said, you need to go and get you, I guess to the judge or somewhere. But anyway, they just quickly, the first man was auctioned. He wouldn't finish it. So
he went away, and then when I know anything, I was telling them I wanted my house. I'd buy it myself. And within a minute of just that, I lost my home.
Hi, my name is Jackie. I'm representing the estate of Elise Singleton. She's my great aunt, and her property was left to my daughter. And when there was a relative that was living there, so when she passed away, her brother turned the keys over to my daughter. As he had read the will his sister had showed him when she was still alive. So the will ended up coming up missing, so now we're in the process of trying to go through probate. Because there was a discrepancy with one person, now we're fighting. The courts appointed, I had the administratorship. My attorney that I had in the beginning failed to tell me how to get my letters of administration. So I ended up losing my administratorship after I found out when I got to court last year. We started this in July of 2014. Last May, they appointed some lady from out of the clear blue from somewhere to be the administrator. And the court appointed her. My attorney did not do the paperwork properly, so I ended up not being able to get that. And even though the judge told him that he had 2 weeks to get the objection in and pay the fee, they would consider it. He wouldn't do it. He said, well, at this point it really doesn't matter. I was like, but no, but they're getting ready to take our property. So then next thing we know, okay, the administrator that they appointed, all they wanted to do was sell the property. We were trying to keep it. At first, they had it at $500,000. We could afford to buy that person out. Then, when we showed interest in it, it went up to $700,000. So then they priced it. They intended to price it out of our range at that point. So my family and I was still trying to work with them. They were not trying to. They're in for the money. And I tried to sit down with them. I tried to have conversations. They threatened to call the police on me if I contacted the mother again. But I'm trying to handle business here. But they're too busy trying to get some money. But it wasn't even intended for them anyway. But okay, so we're here now. But the thing about it is that we as people that own property, we need to make sure that we have our trust, although sometimes even having a trust, as you've heard, it doesn't matter. They're looking for property that's paid for. They're taking people's property. I see it mostly in our black community. We're losing our properties because we cannot come together and work to keep our properties. And in the end, they're literally stealing our properties from us legally. And we have no recourse. And it would be nice if somebody looked into this to see how this is going. We don't have a chance to have a mediator or anything. Next thing you know, it's just a court-appointed person, and they're doing things their way. And I'm going round and round with this administrator right now because there are fees that she's charging, she and this real estate agent, that are astronomical. So now that I'm questioning it, now I'm getting in trouble, they say, with the court because I'm asking questions. But $31,000 is not $3,000, it's not $300. $31,000 that they're trying to tack on all of these exorbitant amounts of money that they supposedly were selling the property as is, but now they painted. We had just painted. We had cleaned it up. They went in there, they had to clean again, they said. So it's like now you're trying to take, you don't want to give us any money, but then you're trying to make sure you pad your books and make sure you get paid. And the other people that are there, they're getting paid, but then you don't want to pay the people who this property belongs to. So with that, I urge people, if you have family that are seniors that own their properties, make sure that they are not signing their homes away with reverse mortgages. That's another way that they're taking our people's property. And they're going after properties that's paid for. They're not going after they're not auctioning off these houses that have a reverse mortgage on them. No, they're going after properties that are already paid for. And I urge people to make sure they stay in their person's life to the point where they know what's going on. Somebody has to know what's going on, because these people, sometimes they aren't even competent enough documents for these reverse mortgages. So if they're getting public guardians and different things assigned out, then that's something that those people, if they're saying that they're not capable of making those decisions, then they shouldn't be able to make that decision to sell their property away without someone else in the family being able to sign off on it if that's what their parents want. So that's it.
My name is Alan Brown. I grew up in North Oakland. We owned a house on 62nd and Shattuck. We had owned it since the 60s. My mother and father both worked at the post office. And my mother lived there, and she passed. And after she passed, my brother and sister decided to sell a house, because I don't know why they wanted to sell it, because the house was paid for and we had money in the bank to cover all the expenses, and there weren't no expenses because the house had been paid off since the 90s. And so we went about getting a lawyer. I tried to get a lawyer with my brother, who was incarcerated. My sister had her own lawyer. So the lawyer that my brother got, the lawyer had signed a contract with my brother, so he couldn't represent me, so I got reduced to second-class status. And I went about trying to find a lawyer, and I finally found one. And they included in a second piece of property that we owned that shouldn't have been included, which I tried to inform the lawyer, but then I informed my lawyer about a loan that my mother had gotten on the house and had paid off. Well, this lawyer that I had got called my sister's lawyer and informed her. He informed the lawyer of that, and that was the criteria of the probate sale, which I got custody of the second house, which I already had because my name was on it. But they used that when they sold the house. They took part of my estate sale, the money from the estate from selling it, and gave it to my brother and sister. And all along, throughout the whole process, I ended up losing my lawyer. Well, she quit on me. She said she was too busy to take the case. So they went about it, and we're still going through it now somewhat, because my brother ended up having a heart attack. So he's in a rehabilitation now, but he's going to need help for the rest of his days, so we're still working through that. And they just like they got away with it, and it's hard to deal with all the way around, because there's really no access to the probate courts in the system.
My name is Raymond Willis, and I represent the A. Willis Revocable Trust. My sister, Maxine Usry, excuse me. The estate had four different properties valued at between $8 and $10 million. Excuse me. There were 5 of siblings of this estate. The estate, according to the articles in the probate, in the trust, said that the trust was to be governed by a 60% majority of my father's children, the A. Willis Trust. my sister and I got outvoted 3-2. And the other 3 siblings found a lawyer who saw a chance to make a lot of money. And he took out the provision in the trust that said that it was to be governed by a 60% majority. And he instituted my sister as the administrator of the trust. So they turned the articles of the trust completely around, disregarded the will and disregarded the trust, and gave us a trustee, a court-appointed trustee. And from that point on, we were saddled with 2 other trustees. And all they were doing was keeping the trust on a treadmill, so that the lawyers and the court could make money. We have been on it for 14 years now, and they've been bleeding the trust dry. We had a settlement about a month ago. And out of that estate, valued at the amount of money that I just mentioned, we got $50,000, and we're lucky to get that. Okay. So in all, what happened to us had happened to all of the people that are participating in this group. We've been robbed by the law. And it was just as well they took out a gun and robbed us, because they violated the laws of the probate, and they simply took people's property. And we would like to have someone look into it, investigate it, and see what is going on, because it seems to be a cartel, a group of people who have turned the probate courts into an industry of a estate or property industry, and all of them are making money off of it. So we would like some help from someone in investigating and stopping these people from doing what they're doing, because they are out and out crooks. They're operating above the law.
My name is MC Livingston, and I represent my grandma's. She is actually my grand auntie, the Juanita Rosal Suero Trust, and she has her house at 1044 6th Avenue in Oakland. I lost her in May of 2015, but at that time, my cousin was taking care of her, and we were paying my cousin. And then these people came over to her house, and they were offering a reverse mortgage. So we were looking at her trust. She has a trust, and I am the trustee, supposed to be the successor trustee. And I was looking at it, and at that time the house was under her name, as well as her sister, my late auntie, as well. The house were both under their names. And then on Mother's Day, May of 2015, I lost her. And then these people wrote me a letter. They told me, hey, the reverse mortgage from Seattle Mortgage, the Seattle Mortgage was already like bankrupt at the time. They transferred it over to Bank of America. And unfortunately on that trust, there is something there in the provision that it has to go through the probate. So they told me to call several numbers. This letter that I was getting, they told me to call several numbers, and they were all from Florida. I called those numbers, and I thought they were giving me some help, but they kept telling me that my grandma's home was going to be under probate, even if there is a trust. And I said, well, you know, I have a job, and I'm willing to pay every month for whatever reverse mortgage that she had. I just need to buy her property. And they kept telling me, well, it's gonna go through probate. So every numbers that I called on the letter that I was getting, it was never a help for me. And then my cousin, who was taking care of her, she went to LA, and one day the mails I was getting the mails. I went one Christmas to pick up the mails because nobody was living in the house, and there was a letter. They were just saying, oh, something like she's her property, they're giving her notice that she is behind or something. And I said, well, these are reverse mortgage. I kept calling those people. And one day, I went in and somebody broke into the property. He claimed that this person claimed, I even had his name. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. He claimed that the property was in Craigslist for rent and that he has a rental agreement. And I said, no, this property is not for rent. His name was Hayward Collins. At the time, I didn't know his name. He said, we found it. It is on pre-foreclosure, and we are an investment company. And I tried to talk to him. He would never give me his name, and I told him, I am the trustee. I have the trust here, and this is my ID. He took a picture of my ID and everything. And I was being nice to him, and finally I got his name. That's why I was able to get his name. And then later on, I found out that he was going through all places, breaking into homes that don't have anybody living in them. And he has all these paperwork that looks like real, that he is renting them or something like that. And I went to the, his name is, he's supposed to be, I believe he was the Alameda County Assistant District Attorney. His name is David Lim. And I went to him, I told him I needed help because I can afford to buy back my grandma's property. I just need, you to give me some time because it is in the reverse mortgage that my cousin asked to be drawn, that I have to sell it within 1 year, and it wasn't even 1 year at the time, and I'm already getting all these letters. I told them I want to have her first death anniversary in her house so I can hold the mass and everything. And I needed help. I just needed to make sure that I'm talking to the right people because every phone numbers that I'm getting, I'm not getting any help at all. And I even went to pay my own attorney. I paid $5,000 up front. I did not get any help at all. So in short, I lost my grandma's property, and until now I'm still trying to fight for it. And every time I go at the house, I went to the county recorder's office. They were able to change the name already. And I know who these people are because I have the police report when they went in there and broke into the property. At the time, I even called PG&E and turned off all the utilities because they already taking everything that was in the house. And unfortunately, I did not have any success at all, even if I paid $5,000 up front to all these, actually it's a total of $10,000 now. I'm still not getting anything. That's why when I was at the county recorder's office one time, I saw these people that are passing out, the reform and everything. So that's why I signed up, and that's why I'm here. And the person that was there at the time, he told me, you can go to the Asian American. I said, I don't care where I go, whether it's black community or white community or Asian American. I just need help right now because I really need help for my grandma's property, and I don't know what to do. So that's why I'm hoping that whatever you guys will do, I will be with you.
My name is Wilfred Ussery. I have been blessed to be in a family that over generations has worked at trying to make it better for the next generation. And what I have been witness to through my relationship to my wife and my brother-in-law is how disputes in a family of descendants can destroy the work of several generations prior to ourselves through family disputes and the kind of institutional role that the probate court plays in how they get introduced to those disputes and take them forward. It's clear to me that one of the reasons that black people don't own as much land in this country as they did 20 years ago is because of the institutional role of the probate court system in intervening in the dispute resolution thing within a family. I wound up calling the prior generation the Pearl Harbor generation because that's indeed when many families in the black community acquired property and were able to build a nest egg that could be left to the next generation. But we have aborted through this process, ourselves and the probate court, the intergenerational creation of wealth. Our generation is not contributing as much to what we pass on to the next generation of our families, what our prior families were able to do. The probate court system is really an entity in the law where lawyers now understand that if they get to be a part of a system where the rules for how you get on the panel as a probate judge is a very well protected system. There are very few black attorneys that get on those lists. There are very few women that get on those lists to function as a probate judge. And they understand how it's important to their interest as lawyers to keep the selection process of who becomes a probate lawyer or a probate judge or a probate special administrator. That's a very closely guarded and protected system where they play the role of reducing the wealth that is passed on to the beneficiaries of families. And I think that's one of the things that has kept the glue in this organization, because as they begin to complain about their own problems with the probate court, they found out that there were many people in the Bay Area, black and otherwise, who were having the same problem with the probate court system. So it's unfortunate. Someone has to take it on, and this group, I think, is to be applauded and praised for the energy that they put in trying to understand how to identify other people who have similar complaints with the court system and to see whether or not there's anything to be done about it. And in that regard, they have been successful in getting a unanimous vote of the Berkeley City Council and the mayor of Berkeley and the unanimous vote of the Oakland City Council to request the Alameda County District Attorney's Office to conduct an investigation of the probate court system. But it literally stopped at that level because the people that kind of orchestrate the inspection system of whether something is going wrong chose not to take it any further up to this point in time. So that's what I have witnessed and been marginally a part of through the activities of my wife and my brother-in-law.
Okay, this is sort of the conclusion of our meeting. We normally meet here every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, and this is the newspaper office. My boss, Paul Cobb, has been just really supportive and generous for the whole 5 to 6 years we've been doing this. So he lets us meet here, and we try and conduct business. And he also writes stories about each and every one of us. We've been in the paper, and that's how we've gotten some of the attention before. But we also have a group of our members who go out in front of the Berkeley Probate Courthouse on every Tuesday, or they're at the Alameda Courthouse every Tuesday at 10 o'clock from 10 until 1, I think it is. And they are the ones who introduce themselves to people who are coming out of the probate court needing help. So that's one of the set of activities, and we are in need of a good attorney who is willing to take our case as, we don't know whether it's a class action case that we warrant, or, but we'd like to have somebody look at us as a group and understand the basic problem of what's happening in the probate court and the individual stories that we're telling them. We have now, I think, about 65 people on our roster who signed up to be a part of this group because, and again, we started meeting just because we needed to have somebody to talk to, because I thought maybe I was losing my mind, that I just did not believe that the courts could do what they were doing to us. And as my brother has said to you, we have been fighting this battle for about 14 years now. We finally settled, and the battle wasn't not one that we were trying to fight, but we got totally disconnected by the attorneys who, in fact, talked to our siblings and offered them money, and they have been the reason that we, in fact, have not been able to settle. We have never been able to get together with our siblings to talk about how we would, in fact, do this. We know that they don't want us to have the property, and they don't want to, in fact, let us buy it or let us borrow enough money to pay them out. So it's obviously something happening, but they are being also encouraged by the attorneys who are making all of the money. We will, out of a $5.2 million estate, we will probably, as my brother said, we'll get about $50,000 if we get that, and they're trying to figure out how we have to pay some other things out of that. So it's a horrible thing, but we do need an attorney, and we're asking for support, and we're also asking for people, anybody who would like to join our group, to in fact contact me and some of the other, and I will refer you to some of the other people to talk to, but my number is area code 831-238-0096. And my resident number, I know my husband's not going to want me to do this, but it's 415-931-9465. And I can be reached at, and I can also be reached at Maxine Ussery, and that's MaxineUssery at Comcast.net. That's my email. So we'd like to hear from anybody who, in fact, would like to be supportive, or who has having a similar problem, and who could join our group. And we think, because in numbers, people have to believe that it's not just me. I'm not the only one complaining. And we find out we also have similar trustees that have been appointed, similar judges who have been over the cases, and some of them have been on the cases, in our case, years ago, and then they come back and re-enter the case, and that should not be the case. We got several people disqualified that way. So again, our purpose for meeting on Wednesday nights is just to be supportive, and to, in fact, try to keep moving it, because we're not going to give up. They're forcing us to sell the property. They're for so little that we might as well be giving it away, but we are still going to continue to fight, even though some of us have had to it's been sold. Some of my property has been sold too. So again, we need help, and we'd like very much to have support from, and we'd like to have the probate court investigated. And I don't think that that's asking too much, because I think if, in fact, they're up doing all of the right things, then it should not matter whether or not you, and that's what we'll find out. But we'll also find out if they're not doing the right things. And that's what we think that we deserve. And we are seniors, and we don't get to do this again. The wealth that we've been given, we have not enough time in our lives to really redo that again. So it's really it's a very desperate situation for a lot of people, because we are now, they are selling our property, and we're going to be renters. and what they gave us to live on, we can't go back to work because I'm 78, my brother's 83, so that's not something we can do again. So thank you, and we hope that people will in fact call and send us messages and show support. We really would like that very much.
Well, I'd certainly like to express our appreciation and gratitude to all the participants who came today and shared with you some of the experiences that they are and have encountered in the Alameda County probate court system. I also have been a victim in that I was unlawfully removed as the executor of the estate by the Judge Castellanos. And as a result, my mother's property has now been turned over to a special administrator who in fact has hired a broker that they can work together in collusion to sell the property. I want you to know that all of the people who have come forth thus far, we all have been victims of financial elder abuse. And as I bring this program to a close, of course, inviting you to join us again next week, if it's God's will, when we will once again come your way, bringing to you spiritual songs and hymns and the power of the spoken word of God. I do want you to know that our struggle continues. And in the words of a young white lady by the name of Heather Hare, if you are not outraged, you are not paying attention. Join us again next week, if it's God's will. Until then, it's my prayer that God will continue to bless you and your family and to keep you all safe.